After getting memed about roses for months on end, I decided to make a Mind of an Editor on both Roses and Blossom, even though I don't think they deserve an episode, since there's not really much to explain compared to allegory videos. I'm doing both at the same time because Roses on its own would be like a 2-minute episode. Quite a long time ago, an old friend of mine started making music. The first song of his I ever used was a remix of a Mothica song I used in Golden Hand. I had never really listened to that genre of music before, and he was the one who sort of introduced me to it. Golden Hand was one of my first chill Halo 5 edits, and I wanted to make more like that, so later on I began working on Roses. This edit uses a Glassface remix from Carrie, who at the time was under the name Closure, and the song of course was also named Roses. Instead of making a normal, boring edit, I decided to add a small story to it and give the edit a theme. I came up with the entire story on a little scrap of paper during one of my old classes, and it was entirely based off one of the lyrics in the song, "When I die, bury me with roses." Now that you know the backstory of the edits, I'll read off the subtitles that I spread out through Roses in case you forgot. My sight of you faded to black, the pain was too much. I'm sorry I let you down. My sight may have faded, but not my love. The roses and I, we will wait for you. In essence, this is a story of a couple that falls apart after the girl suffered an accident and became blind. Her sight faded to black, and she lived in so much pain that she decided to end her life. Although she was still in love with the guy, she wasn't strong enough mentally to keep on living blind, and the subtitles in the edit are her thoughts from the afterlife. When she says the roses and I, we will wait for you, she doesn't mean hurry up and kill yourself too. She's just saying that when his time comes and he dies of natural causes or whatever, she won't have forgotten him and will still be waiting. A little detail seen throughout the video is the subtitles increasingly changing into Braille. This was to reflect how the girl was slowly becoming blind. I also wanted to make it increasingly harder to decipher for those who bothered doing so, just to make it a bit more challenging. And that's all there is to explain about Roses. Now let's explain Blossom, the second part. When Carrie released his latest album, I knew I had to make another edit again. It's become a sort of tradition where whenever he releases a new album, I make an edit with one of his songs. This time I decided to build the edit around the story I came up with in Roses. The first edit was from the perspective of the woman, and in Blossom it's the man's perspective. Here are the subtitles, and I'll explain as I go. The very first line you see is the exact same as the ending line of Roses, "We will wait for you." This was just to set up the sequel and show that it's a direct follow-up to the previous story. This line was nearly impossible to properly translate because it immediately starts deteriorating, but the video fades in so you miss the first few frames. "I'm lost without your smile. I look up at the stars hoping you can guide me." Ever since her suicide, the man is hopelessly lost in life and doesn't know what he wants to do or what his purpose is anymore, but he still holds on to the memory of the woman. The next line just spells out Carrie. Similarly to Roses, I put the artist's name in the edit. The next line translates to, "I look down thinking maybe I should join you." This was meant to be a contrast between hope when he looks up at the stars and despair when he looks down at her grave. He was of course deeply affected by her passing, and he considered joining her in death multiple times. However, after his grieving became less intense, he was determined to continue living, so he tells himself, no, not yet. The last pink scene may be hard to understand, but it's supposed to be the man cradling the dead woman in his arms. The only way I could get something close to that was by manipulating an assassination animation. "Maybe now you will see me from your bed of roses." If she could no longer see in life, maybe she could look down upon him in death. And of course she was buried with roses, so that's why I mentioned the bed of roses in her grave. "I will stay strong. I will not let you down." As I mentioned previously, the woman admitted to not being strong enough to keep living, but the man wants to make her proud and do what she couldn't do. Don't interpret this as him thinking, "Oh, you're pathetic because you couldn't even stay alive, I'm better than you." He says this line because he knows she would be sad if he killed himself too, and she would feel even worse because it would indirectly be because of her own suicide. "I shared half of your pain." This one might be less obvious compared to all the other lines. So during his period of grieving and suicide contemplation, he tried making himself blind to be just like her. So he gouged one of his eyes out, but he couldn't bring himself to continue with the other eye, so that's why he only shared half of her pain. My rose may have withered, but I will still blossom. Although you died and I'm all alone without any purpose in life anymore, I will still try to find a way to grow and become stronger from this traumatic experience. Thus concludes the story of Blossom and Roses. Orphic, you can leave me alone now that you got what you wanted, and I suppose this also concludes my Mind of an Editor explaining subseries, now that I finally explained every single one of my noteworthy edits. As for what I plan on doing next, I don't know. I might save that for another video, I guess.